well appreciated from week to week. So thank you very much for being with us. Today we are going to be having a discussion on one of the most recent events that took place in St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, we know we had phase one of the traffic lights that were installed a few years ago, and now we have phase two of the traffic lights that were commissioned yesterday, and the lights were turned on yesterday. So today we are going to be talking traffic lights, or as some people refer to them as traffic signals. And I have very competent people here on my panel who we are going to engage in a whole education exercise, education and awareness exercise in terms of the lights in and around Bastille. So to my immediate right, I have Mr. Livingston Pemberton. He is no stranger to this program, and he is the Chief Engineer at the Public Works Department. Next, I have Miss Carleen Phipps, and she's from the Traffic Department. She's the head of traffic. Then I have Mr. all the way from Jamaica, land of wood and water, Mr. Barrington Cross. And Mr. Cross, of course, is an engineer, but he's a specialist in traffic signals and especially in the programming of traffic signal lights. Welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we are coming of age here in St. Kitts and Nevis. At one time, of course, you know, we never had any traffic lights, and there was no need really for traffic lights. But with the exponential growth of motor vehicles on our roads and so on, it has become necessary. Mr. Pemberton, I would start with you, and of course, I would like you to give a sort of an overview of the whole traffic lights project, in the sense that we had the first phase, we've now had the second phase, some of the feasibility studies and so on that were done, and so on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams, and good day to our viewing and listening audience. As you rightly said, the traffic signals, there would have been a first phase followed closely by a second phase. It was always the intention to have the second phase follow the first phase, and so consequently, the consulting firm of ADEB Consultants Limited out of Jamaica, they were commissioned to carry out a traffic study to determine where within the Bastille environs additional traffic lights would have been needed. And so they set about doing their necessary traffic counts, where they would look at where the traffic was originating, where it was going, how many were turning in this direction, turning in that direction. And out of that traffic study, they would have determined the areas that they would have recommended that traffic signals be placed. And out of that study, some 7 intersections would have been identified. And so plans were then put in place to have these junctions signalized. The project would have started some years ago, but as a consequence of COVID, as well as because there was a change in the leadership of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the project was halted for a while. There was some refocusing that was taking place, and finally in 2022, we were again ready to proceed. The infrastructure would have been in place for some time, as I would have indicated earlier, but again, because of the restrictions of COVID-19 and some refocusing internally, there was a pause in the project. We have now come to the point where we would have commissioned the lights just yesterday, and the traffic lights are actually working in 6 of the 7 areas.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Pemberton, for that overview. Now, Inspector the traffic lights, the second phase, they have been mounted in different areas around Bastille. Could you tell us where they have been installed?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to Radioland. The 6 areas in which the traffic lights are mounted are Keon Street and College Street. We have Bay Road and College Street, Port Zante West and Port Zante East, Sandown Road and Bay Road, Wellington Road and Leonard Dickinson Street.
Okay, now, of course, Inspector, with the installation at these places of the traffic lights, there would be some, or there is some traffic changes that, would have to be made in terms of pedestrians and motorists. Can you tell us what some of those are?
Some of the areas that we have changed and put certain restrictions are Wellington Road and Leonard Dickinson Street. That's the area by Hosford Gas Station. We also have Keon Street West. That's if you're proceeding or you're traveling from west to east. As you got to Church Street, you cannot make that right turn. You have to continue straight. Also Keon Street and College Street. You cannot make that right turn into College Street. That would take you south to the Bay Road. Also, as you get to the bottom of Church Street, you cannot make that right onto Liverpool Road. You'll have to proceed left onto Liverpool Road, and you either take the right on Delisle Street or go straight towards the Circus. Also, the Bay Road, that is in the area of Sands Complex, you either enter to Wigley Street or straight into Sands Complex.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are, of course, you spoke about those, but there are some places where people cannot park, restricted parking areas.
In order to facilitate the free flow of traffic and the movement of pedestrians, yellow lines or yellow markings that you may know it are placed in certain areas. For example, on Keon Street, in front of Xerox going west, we have extended the yellow line in order to have the traffic flow freely. Also on the opposite side, that's to Morton Supermarket going east as well. The traffic is also restricted in that area. And in College Street, got where the St. Peter's buses normally, we had to push them further up or up College Street in order to get the traffic flow freely between those areas. Also on the Bay Road, that's next to Ram Supermarket, that whole portion, because of the lights and the traffic changing in the directions coming out of Port Zante, that whole area had to be restrictions. However, there are offloading times for businesses in that area, which is 9 a.m. to 11:30 and from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Okay. Right. Now, Mr. Cross, you have been intimately involved with the installation of the traffic lights. Could you tell us something of the programming of these lights and what some of the studies would have shown in terms of that programming?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Williams. All right. In first, to look at when you install the traffic signals, we have done the counts before, and with the counts, we actually input that data into a computer software. And that data will basically tell you a grade, what we call a grade. You have different grades. Is it an A or a B or a C or a D? As you know, a F is a failure. Normally, and we have counts for different time of the day. Morning, evening peak, afternoon. So normally for a peak hour, when you input that data, if you got a level C, you're somehow quite happy. Because if you have a A for a peak hour, it's like no vehicle is not there, So you normally input that data. So you're really looking at at what the model is saying, to go forward in terms of the design and the whole sequence and the timing of the lights. We also will look at, as a part of the evaluation for signal, is the delay for different approaches, the Q length based on the function of the lights. Because if you have two closest spaced intersections and your data is showing that the Q is headed into the other junction, then you have a problem, what might lead to a reconfiguration of designs and stuff. So the program helps a lot as a starting point to know what you are, what I would say, what you're getting into for the program, which is more time often than not, gives you a good feedback of what you are up against in terms of designing, in terms of generating your signal time, and so forth. In kits, which I would have not been familiar with, what we call exclusive pedestrian fees, where you stop all the vehicles and allow the pedestrians to cross. It's not done much, but I know here where safety triumphs everything. So that was a part of the challenge, because when you add that to the mix, it is a delay for the entire system. So we had to checks and balance to make it work, as I said, to get the right cycle, and the whole study of playing back the program over and over again with the simulation to get the right outputs. So that's where you really want to start with the counts and then input, and you look and you go forward with your design.
Okay, because I mean, traffic lights are not just, like Christmas lights or something that they make around the city look pretty. Red, green, and what you call it, amber. Some people say yellow, but some people say amber.
Yes.
But of course, they have been placed there for particular reasons. And I mentioned in my introduction that, traffic has increased over the years exponentially. And could you tell us, Mr. Pemberton, what are some of the reasons for the installation of traffic lights in the Bastille area?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for that question. One of the benefits of having the traffic lights within the Bastille area is that the traffic is supposed to flow much freer in the Bastille area. I remember the times when the Keon Street area was a major issue when traffic, persons were parked on the street and you were trying to get within Keon Street area in a quick time. It took a little longer. With the introduction of the traffic signals in that area, you find that persons are better able to make that journey through Bastille. One of the factors that would have greatly influenced the phase 2 of the traffic signals would have been development within the Bastille area and development within the country on a whole. It has been discovered that the boat that brings all those cars, Mr. Williams, comes some twice a month. And more vehicles are on the road at this time. Also, what the consultants discovered with the developments that are taking place in Port Zante, the new cruise spear, a situation was looked at. Let's say we were to have mega cruise ships in, and we have a number of persons who would have been disembarking those crews for tours. It is important for them to get to their destinations in the shortest possible time. And so a system was devised so that the persons leaving the cruise ship, they could get to their tours in a short time. So those, for example, who would have been coming out of Port Zante on the western side, they were being pushed down or towards the Cenotaph area. They could have made their way up College Street, and be on their way with their tours. On Port Zante East, the idea was to push them up the Bay Road so that they can get to their tours in quick succession or in quick time. And the reverse also applied, because when they were getting back to the ship leaves at a particular time. And so you would want that these persons will get there in quick time. We also looked at not having Bastille itself being too congested, and hence the reason why the traffic was pushed on either side of the Bastille area.
Right. Now, Mr. Cross, with the programming, do you take into consideration, for example, you look at times that are not busy, and you look at the busiest times? How do you do it? Because from my observation, the busiest day in Bastille is Friday. Friday afternoon is a real busy time for traffic.
All right. The program can deal with different aspects of things during different times of the day. Normally, if your peak hour, Monday to Thursday, veers far away, Friday veers far away between Monday and Thursday, you may need to put a special plan in for Friday afternoon. So let's say it veers 15 or 20%. Then you could look and tell the program on a Friday, between normally peaks here at St. Kitts starts at 3:45 and ends at 5:15 on the Keon Street. On the Bay Road, it tends to end at 5. So you could put a special program in there. The good thing that all of the intersections in St. Kitts have sensors right around. So you can coordinate. What I mean by coordinate, you basically guarantee your main street a certain minimum amount of green time. That's guaranteed for them. That's what you call synchronization. Any unused time on the side street goes towards your main street to keep that flow in place. So the program is able to be flexible and into all conditions. In the nights, the lights flash. On the weekends, is what we call running free, first come, first serve. And we do that because pedestrians tend to become impatient if what we call the cycle length is too long, and the ballpark number is 90 seconds. You don't want, cycle length means a point in the cycle, say you are a pedestrian, come cycling around, is more than 90 seconds, they tend to get a bit. So you try as much as possible to keep that cycle length not over 90. So you want to, if you can, and the possibility to run your lights, what we call free, first come, first serve. The pedestrian come, push his button, nothing is not there, he able to go within a few seconds. Because it's really a downtown district where you have to take your pedestrians also in the mix for the efficiency of the junction also. Yes.
Now, Inspector, the traffic lights, of course, could you explain the colors? Because, you know, as simple as that may seem, sometimes I have seen people, the light is on red and the red light. I don't know if they're aware that red means stop, but they just go through. And I have seen that in front of me on the roads more than once. What do these colors mean, and what are the repercussions for people not adhering to them?
First, I will speak to pedestrian crossing. With these junctions, they are equipped with pedestrian crossings. They have signals are installed in these junctions. Pedestrians are required to cross the road in the vicinity of the traffic lights only when it displays the crossing for pedestrian to cross. Failing to do so, you could be fined up to $500. Also, for motorists are required to comply with the traffic signals or traffic lights. If a vehicle of traffic facing a green light signal, they may proceed straight through or turn right or left unless a sign or marking prohibits each such turn or straight through the movement. A green arrow, the driver shall turn in the direction indicated by the signal. For example, if you're coming out of Port Zante, you'll see the arrow. They have the one that indicate left, so you go straight down the bed towards the bus terminal. Vehicle traffic facing a steady yellow light is hereby warned that the related green light is being terminated or that a red light is indicated or prepared to stop. Simple. A steady red light, the driver shall bring his vehicle to a stop at or before he arrives at the limited line in the intersection. That is the line where the sensor is located. When a yellow light is flashing, drivers of vehicles facing such signals may proceed through the intersection or pass signal with caution, giving way to pedestrian.
Okay. Now, Inspector, I have two questions. What if the road is clear? There is no vehicle in sight. Can I cross the road as a pedestrian without that pedestrian signal?
For road safety, it is wise that you cross the road on the signal, but if there is no vehicle, it is very clear to cross.
Right, because I have seen in other countries, like in London and so on, that people would cross even though they make sure that they can cross, that they are safe to cross.
Yes, sir.
But of course, the pedestrian thing is very, very important. Another question, what if it is 1 a.m. in the morning? I am going home from the strip. No other traffic is seen on the road. The light is red. Do I stay at the red light?
Presently, how the lights are, once it's after midnight, they have a flashing light, so that means you can proceed with caution.
Yes, but
there's no red light at that point in time, it's flashes.
Yes, but that has not always been the case. Sometimes the light has been red, it's not flashing, right there on 4th Street, very early in the morning, and, do I stay there? Is it a safety concern? Because I stay there, I can be held up at gunpoint. What?
Well, I would say you would observe the moment and then you proceed with caution.
Okay. Right. Now, Mr. Pemberton, I know that these lights have caused some traffic changes, especially when it has to do with public transportation. Could you speak to that element, the public transportation part of it? Inspector as well, or Mr. Pemberton? Mr. Pemberton.
Okay, I will say a few and then perhaps the inspector would like to come in also. In terms of the public transportation, the commuters in the St. Peter's area, they would have been impacted in that, as the inspector would have rightly said. They had to be pushed further up College Street in order for them to ply their trade. And this was done to ensure that there was safety once the lights would have been commissioned. And of course, we would have met with them, would have informed them that this was coming, and so the licensing authority would have gone to them thereafter and informed them that the time had come for them to be pushed up further up that area. One of the other things that public transport would be impacted by is that some of the bus stops that are within close proximity to the lights, they eventually would have to be removed. That will be handled, of course, by the physical planning department. They have already been apprised of that, and so they will be taking the necessary steps to have those relocated. So there are some adjustments that are taking place within the public transportation system, but if we all work together, in the end, it will be down to the benefit of all.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, Inspector?
With regard to the public service system, we have bus stations in place. You have one located at the east and at the west, so I don't see it as no big issue because you must terminate at your point, and likewise the general public have to go to the bus stations.
How will this impact the bus drivers? Because I know sometimes these bus drivers, they don't really stop at the bus stations, they stop anywhere on the road. You see somebody and they want to pick them up, and so therefore, instead of stopping where they should stop, you know, I've seen a lot of things in terms of these traffic lights. For example, on Keon Street, I've seen people actually stop on Keon Street to talk to people. I've seen people stop to offload and put stuff. Sometimes you're behind them, the light is green, and you cannot, you are an obstacle to you going forward. Yes.
Well, we'll be out in full doing more enforcement as we have more lights now, and we know drivers, some of them are inconsiderate, and so we'll be there enforcing the law as it relates to stopping and obstructing the free flow of traffic.
What are the consequences, Inspector, if people do not adhere to the traffic lights? Apart from just paying a fine. Paying a fine is one thing.
If persons don't adhere to the traffic light, they can get in some serious accidents and cause death. It could be their own life as well. And so I'm appealing to the general public to please comply with the lights and drive safe and think of other road users.
I think they will take some time getting used to. Yesterday when the lights were turned on, we saw what happened down on the Bay Road. You had the lights and people were just moving along as though there were no lights. So it will take some time really getting used to.
Changes.
Yes, and adapting
to
the changes. And of course, you know, change is not something that is easy. But nonetheless, we have to adapt. This is now a modern day St. Kitts and Nevis. And, you know, that is one of the things. With development, of course, comes changes. And we spoke about the increase in the number of motor vehicles in St. Kitts on the road and so on, creating congestion, basically, in the Bastia area. Apart from traffic lights, though, what are some other ways in which the congestion of traffic in the Bastia area can be further reduced?
One person can carpool. You either park somewhere and then your neighbor or your friend could pick you up and drop you to work. With the changes, we must do carpooling or have areas to park. We have the parking lots at Port Zante. We have Port Zante West, Port Zante East, and of course other areas around town. And for example, you could park up in the Basti High School ground. That's an area nobody tends to use. You could park inside Warner Park. And so we have to use our initiative and find ways to park our vehicles safely.
I asked that question because even though we have the traffic lights, parking has become a problem in Bastille. And it may require that we build parking lots, because you spoke about the Port Zante and so on, but oftentimes that parking lot is full, and the parking lots are full. We also talk about the pollution. Maybe Livingston can, how can traffic lights help cut down on air pollution?
Okay, well, there can be a connection there, as the inspector would have rightly said. You can carpool. So instead of having 5 cars coming in the city with 1 person in each car, you can have 2 cars with 3 persons and 2 persons coming in. That way you will reduce the amount of emission that is going into the atmosphere. But I must say, Mr. Williams, that there has been a lot of planning over the years to see how Bastille itself can be revitalized. And I know that one of the issues that have been looked at is the whole flow of traffic within the Bastille area. There have been some discussions, there have been some plans that have been placed on the table for consideration and for decision. And when and if those are approved, we will see even a greater efficiency of the traffic management within the Bastille area. And they are taking into consideration all of the traffic, the buses, the commuters, where you park, whether or not we're going to need parking meters so that you park for a specific time and then you have to move on. All these are things that are being looked at. And as I said, once the decision makers would have made the relevant decisions and communicate that back to the implementers, then that plan can be rolled out and the public will be duly informed at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some of us who probably see the traffic lights as being a nuisance, because I have to stop. I have to allow somebody else to go. What can they teach us in terms of, patience, how, the whole rules of traffic? What can it teach us about being an orderly society? And so on. Livingston.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for that question. The traffic lights, basically, as we would have said earlier, help to regulate the traffic. In the past, we would have had police officers being in the traffic, directing traffic. We did recognize, of course, that those persons could have been used elsewhere within the service. And so when the traffic lights were implemented or conceived, we no longer had a police officer standing in the traffic and directing traffic, because the traffic lights were there. What the traffic lights also did is that it gave each commuter an equal opportunity to access. Just yesterday, someone was telling me in the past, before the traffic lights in the area of Convent, whenever they were coming out of there, it was nightmarish to actually get out, because you had to wait for somebody to be courteous enough to let you out. But now if you come up that street, you have your turn when it's your turn to go. And so in that sense, each person has an equal opportunity, as it were, to access the roads. So that is an improvement that the traffic signals or traffic lights would have brought.
Okay. Mr. Cross, tell us something about the programming, because of course you program, let's say you program the lights in 2022. In another year, what are some of the things that factors that you would look for in terms of having to reprogram those lights? Because traffic, of course, is something that is not static. It is dynamic. It is always changing. We're getting more and more cars. We're getting more and more traffic, and so on.
One of the main old school thing is when you get reports or complaints. You can't go wrong with that. If you get numerous complaints that I'm sitting at a light and the queue is long, so the first thing is actual complaints from motorists. The program itself will actually tell you, you give each section an amount of time, the side streets especially. You know, if you check on the program and you give it 20 seconds and each time in the cycle is using that 20 seconds, you will know that there's a need for more time for that particular approach. And then you would want to commission another study to check the volumes and head back to your software program to evaluate the performance of the intersection. So it's three approaches: your complaints, your commission of a study, your input there, your own observation at 4, to see where you go from there in terms of if you need to actually what we call retime intersection or a series of signals.
Okay, now you have come from Jamaica as the specialist to program the lights. Now, has part of your mission been to assist people here on the ground, that if somehow the computer programming is off or whatever the case is, that they can come to the aid of addressing it? Because traffic is so important and the programming is so important, you don't want chaos on the roads. Rather than having to call you back from Jamaica, which is going to take time for you to come, or you may not be able to come at the very same time that you requested and so on. So tell me, is that knowledge been passed on in some way?
Yeah, most definitely. And you would never want to put in a system in anywhere where I need to be there in terms of timing and so. So we have Mr. Bervin Daniel at Public Works, who has been here since the phase 1 of the intersections, and so we have the timing and so on a laptop which we both share. So he has actually a backup here. So we have all the information. So if somehow like a computer will lose the programming, then he is able to download back and get it up back to speed and also fine tune. The whole infrastructure is geared towards safety access, and there are features within the cabinet if something goes wrong in terms of conflicting signals. If you get a green or two opposing green, the system shuts down itself. So it is a very safe system, and as we say, we have plans and in place here with Mr. Daniel. If anything goes wrong, he's more than capable to sort it out. And we also have further additional training for him in terms for these traffic lights and other things to deal with traffic lights, because the technology is ever growing. We had the GPS to the signals. That's a time source, because it is important to keep time. You don't, normally you would have manually set and sometimes the clock drifts. So we have a GPS sync that is sync every hour. So you are basically correct normally to the last minute, seconds. You're not out too far. not more than a minute. So the technology is always, you have to keep abreast of the industry and what is going on. So with Bervin at the Public Works, he's on par, he's on speed, and he's capable to monitor and to address any situation that might develop.
I have a simple question, but it may sound very simple. Is a stoplight a computer?
No, but a computer is a part of the functioning of a microcomputer is a part of the function of a traffic light. We also have, moving forward, you have central system where you can actually control remotely. Because I can stay here in St. Kitts and make changes to my traffic lights in Jamaica real time. So it becomes more IT based in terms of your communication, normally interlink them by fiber, and so it becomes more IT based. And I say it's a growing industry.
And what type of computer programming do you use? Because I mean,
it's a program within itself. I program, but it's not me writing the program. It's already written. It's user friendly, so you just put in you do a few calculations, of course. So you just put in your 20 seconds, your 30 seconds. So the interface is fairly straightforward. So it's not like you're doing like a genius or writing programs and things. That would take too long. So it's something what is user friendly and easy to maneuver.
There are some components of the traffic thing that a component that is mechanical. For example, the pedestrian, there's a button there that you press. That is mechanical. How does that function? Because you press it. Does that send a message to? How does it work?
Okay, the push button is connected to two wires. You push in, it closes a circuit. There is a device in the cabinet we call a DC isolator that picks up that closed circuit, and that's the interface between it and the computer. And with that closing of the circuit and the DC isolator, seeing that, it sends that signal to the controller that a pedestrian is there and waiting. And it depends on which side of the pedestrian it is. So the DC isolator is placed in that particular position for the controller to know its position. It's number 2 pedestrian, it's number 4. So each of them have a number in terms of movements for it.
I ask that is because what I have observed as well. For the pedestrian crossing, you have people that press that button several times, as though they're saying, well, pressing the button, well, the pedestrian thing is going to come on now, or they're pressing it for it to come on. But
as I say, not necessarily, because it's a cycle and it's order. Because if you're a pedestrian and you think you're going to get that walk every time, maybe traffic won't move. So there's an order to the system, especially when you have synchronization. So there's a particular time in the cycle where it would allow the pedestrian to walk. And that's a thing you set up from the models and the computer software to get the proper movement of traffic. Where you have what they call maybe on weekends or low volume traffic, where it's first come first serve, you might have a quicker service of the pedestrians. But hitting it 5 times won't make a difference. Hit it once, it's okay, it will register, but it just waiting on the right time that is programmed for you. And as I say, we try to keep that cycle as best not over 90. In the peak hours on Kian, we have to go over 95 with all the training. We have to go that 1 hour for each peak period, morning and evening. Then we'll go back to a 80-second cycle within the peak morning and evening. Then we go to a what you call a free, running it free. So you'll be more likely to get it at a quick time. So if you come there at night and there's no traffic, you hit it and you might see you see your walk time. So it's just for the pedestrian to be patient. I know sometimes 90 minutes might be a long time. That's a minute and 30 seconds. It's a long time for most persons. I hear pedestrians. They're not, when I'm out there, they don't know where I am, but I hear like taking so long. And sometimes not even that sort of words, you know. But it is just for patience. But you'll get that signal.
Yeah. Inspector, what advice would you give to motorists and pedestrians? I know, of course, you know, sometimes people are pedestrians, but they're walking very slowly and going across the road and things like that. But then I see there's a timer there counting down. 4, 3, 2, 1. And what does that mean? Maybe you can...
When they start to see it counting down 1, 2, 3, it is indicating that the light is about to change. Not that you have 4 or 5 minutes to cross. It's indicating that the light is about to change.
Right, and so the pedestrian should get across the road as quickly as possible.
Till the sign comes for them to cross.
Yes, okay. Yeah, but sometimes the pedestrian signal is on, and you're going across the road, but yet you see the flashing things, the timing. Sure.
When we calculate and the flashing don't walk time, because there's a calculation on it. Normally, your walk time is standard, no matter how wide it is. Typically between 4 and 7 seconds. Now that walk time is for you when you to push the button, is to just to make your way into the crosswalk. The countdown time is the measurement of the distance from one end of the curve to the next for you to cross. Now, it's generally calculated at 4 feet per second. So in St. Kitts, you have 11-foot lanes typically. So it would be 20 feet, for a 2-lane it would be 22 feet. So that's about 6 seconds of your countdown time. When that countdown time begins, nobody should not attempt again to cross. If you are in the motion of crossing, you can complete the crossing across the intersection. I know there have been a few complaints about more time. It's a tight shift in terms of servicing everybody. The American Disability Association recommend 3 feet per second. Yes, we can look into that, which will give you would be a calculated longer time to get from one end of the street to the next. So if you have a wide intersection with additional lane like Bay Road and Keon Street, you would get more time, which is 33 feet, so it will work out to about 8.5, we round it off, 9 seconds thereabout to cross from one. So everything from the American standard is studied, there's a standard, it's calculated to what is on the ground.
Okay. Now, Pemberton, Mr. Pemberton, all of the traffic lights have not been turned on. And Mr. Cross, when you did the programming, or when that traffic light is turned on in that area up in Bird Rock, there has to be programming again. Because don't they work in sync? Isn't there some sort of a synchronization? Or does that affect anything in terms of these ones that have been turned on?
All right. Part of the programming, which is good about the programming, you have all of the lights on the programming bus here on the computer. Now the good computer going to tell you if we must treat it as an isolated junction, or should we try to synchronize it with the one down by Sandown? based on the distance and other factors, the program will tell you it's not feasible to synchronize. And here's why. If you're not generally getting a flow or a queue from one intersection to the next, synchronization is not feasible. It won't make a difference. So if you keep that intersection, what you call free, first come, first serve, it even becomes more efficient. So that junction being far from others, far the distance from Sandown, it would have been treated as free. That program is still with me. It won't change now. It has been there, sitting there. So there wouldn't be any changes in terms of the program. It is very user friendly. You have the lanes. If you have a turn lane, you add, and it generates like that. Not too much of a lengthy process. We have already done the backbone of placing the map and adding the lanes. We have the volume information of the counts. So all that is inputted in the system already. So there would be any need to try and to reprogram per se.
Mr. Pemberton, is there any end in sight in terms of when that issue up at Bird Rock with the traffic light will be resolved?
What I can say, Mr. Williams, about that is that it is being actively looked at, and within the shortest possible time, that junction will be resolved.
In the shortest possible time?
Shortest possible time.
Okay, wonderful. Now I'm going to go to the phone lines. Of course, this is a call-in program, and of course, this program is put on for the general public who have questions, especially probably with the new lights and so on. So the numbers to call are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international number is 1-239-645-4500, 4500. 1-239-645-4500. We welcome your calls. Right. So, Inspector, anything else you want the good public to know in terms of the traffic lights?
For the general public, I'm appealing that you get yourself familiarized or acquainted with the rules of the road as it relates to the signalized junctions, and to exercise caution and comply with all directions of the police officer, traffic warden, and signs and signals.
Now, in terms of speeding and speed limits, Inspector, I mean, a traffic light slow you down, huh? Some people. What you want to tell us about that?
When it comes to the build-up area, the speed limit is 20 miles. So anywhere around Basti in the city, it's 20 miles per hour. Anything above that, you could be ticketed, and the minimum fee for a speeding ticket is $250. Anything exceeding the first 10 miles of that speed requires an extra $100. So I'm appealing to all to comply with the speed limit within the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we know that, of course, Bastille and the speed limit is significantly reduced because, you have a lot of, it's populated, a lot of people, a lot of pedestrians going about their business and things like that. Right. But we don't have any callers yet. Apparently, people have accepted the traffic signals they understand the importance of having them around town. Of course, it makes us look very international. You know, Bastille looks very international. I know Mr. Cross, of course, in Jamaica. Jamaica has traffic lights for such a very long time. I mean, this is nothing new to him. But here in St. Kitts, traffic lights is very new to us. But in the bigger territories like Jamaica and so on, they have had traffic lights for years and years and years. What are some of the problems, Mr. Cross, that you have encountered in Jamaica for a country that has had traffic signals for such a long time?
Just like anywhere else, enforcement. You have people there who breaks the light. There has been serious accidents. There has been deaths. We have what we call a road safety unit in Jamaica that has been trying to address this. There's new laws in place now for more stiffer fines. We are trying to put in technology, red running light cameras to snap your picture. So all of that in place. So we do have our share of problems, like everywhere else. Even in terms of efficiency of junctions, we have intersections where we need to add more lanes. You can just add X amount of green at some particular in time. You need to improve your whole geometry of the intersections. More volumes, you have to have more lanes to get it more back to efficiency as to a certain level. So those are the particular problems we have back home.
Okay. Mr. Pemberton, in terms of the project, this traffic lights project, what has been the cost to the country?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Within the 2022 estimates, an amount has been budgeted for this project, and it stands within the vicinity of about 1.7 million US dollars. So that is what has been budgeted for 2020 to see the implementation of the traffic signalization within St. Kitts.
Could you repeat that?
1.6 million.
1.6 million.
US.
US. That is the phase one.
No, that is phase two.
That is phase two.
That is phase two. When you combine phase one and phase two, the total amount in EC is about $5.4 million.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the maintenance of the traffic lights, Mr. Cross, apart from the programming, other types of maintenance that may be required for the traffic lights. We have a caller. Let's take that caller first. Working for you, good afternoon. We lost that caller, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, in terms of the maintenance, what you really need to check on first is things that most important, the cabinets. Make sure it's free from dust. You make sure your push buttons are working. Make sure your sensors are working. Most ever visual inspection. A more scheduled maintenance of actually rewiring the cable would be maybe structure maybe once or twice for the year. Mm-hmm. Since this is a new installation, you maybe want to take a look at the cables another year, because they are good standard equipment, military specs, and so they normally stand the test of time.
Okay. Working for you, good afternoon. Hello?
Yes, want to get into the program, please?
Yes, you're on Working for You.
I'm not getting through.
We're hearing you.
Yes, I'm hearing you, but there's a lot of noise in the background, man.
Oh. Could you
get onto the program?
Yes, can you ask your question, please?
Oh, you You're willing to take my question?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Somebody told me, right, that in other countries, okay, this is what I want to ask. Supposing I alone is on the road, would the light sense that I'm the only one in the 4 points and would allow me to pass quicker than if you had traffic slowing back and forth? That's the question I have.
Okay. Thank you for your question. I'd like to answer that.
Okay.
Mr. Cross?
I think I get it from a call. He said if he's the only person on the road that the light will service him faster. That's correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, it will, especially at nights. It will go, because what you have sensors right around, so it's a very efficient operation.
Mm-hmm. Working for you, good afternoon. Hello? Working for you?
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, I'm hearing you too.
Okay. Could you ask your question, please?
Yes. Mr. Lestry,
Yes.
in part of your opening question, in respect to the pollution, especially with the exhaust. For instance, in the United States, for vehicles that have high emission systems, why don't the traffic department have the emission tools to inspect all vehicles to avoid excess emission? Rather than to just allowing a vehicle to pollute the place, and it could be affecting people with asthma or people who are sensitive to exhaust. So to correct that uncontrolled situation, why don't the government, the traffic department, have the tools to do an emission on vehicles? Because pollution is a dangerous thing when it comes around the exhaust. So rather than to just allow pollution to free flow, why don't it be controlled? That would make a cut down on the pollution. In the United States, every vehicle has to go to an emission system, and if they fail, they cannot go on the road until that emission system be corrected. So, and I'm going to jump go as far as even to imported cars. Okay, anyone can buy a car and bring it into Centris, and they allow, providing they can pay the pollution tax. And to me, that is misunderstanding, because pollution is something that got to go to an emission test. So instead of charging $5,000 for emission tax, they should have the vehicle be inspected, approved that it's roadworthy, and that will avoid this tax also they are charging, because you can't just have any car come into the federation and just start to pollute the place. They could have a bad emission system, and that immediately need to correct. Okay? With that pollution tax, or else change that name from pollution tax to a tax that fits where it should be. So it is mixed up when it comes around those terms. Because I understand pollution tax should something to do with pollution, but there are no inspections to check if a vehicle is polluting the place or it is not. So it's a wild goose, and that is killing people. So that might not be for the gentleman that programming the traffic light. That is a question that, is this pollution killing people, or it's okay to pollute the place?
Okay, thank you so much for your concern and your question. Mr. Cross, you said that is a question for you.
No. It's not a question. It's not a question for me. No, it's not a question for me.
Mr. Pemberton, I see you.
No, that question would more be for environment. I know that there's a project that they're working on that are looking at getting to zero carbon footprint or acceptable carbon footprint. So that is something that I know environment would be interested in. And of course, we have to understand that government have different arms. And so the different arms would address different issues and then inform the powers that be. And then these decisions can be rolled out thereafter.
Inspector, he said something about traffic having something to test.
Emission.
Emissions and all of that. Do you know of anything like that?
No, we don't. We don't have those kinds of tools. But what I could do, I could speak with the appropriate authority and also include those persons who inspect vehicles to have them get that part as a part of their tools when inspecting vehicles for roadworthiness.
And you know, the point that he's raising is an important one, because today we're ever more conscious of the environment and how we treat the environment. We hear about greenhouse gases. You hear about the pollution that he mentioned coming from exhaust, the exhaust pipes of vehicles and all of that. He spoke about the health problems that creates and so on, and especially in city centers. There's more pollution in urban areas than in rural areas in general. And that is why I asked the question earlier in terms of the traffic lights. Yes, it helps with the congestion of traffic in the city area, but at the very time, at the same time, you still have the traffic in the center of the city. It's just like you have to regulating it by the traffic lights. In some places, I know what happens is that people park outside the city center and they are shuttled into the city center, and that cuts down on the pollution within that space. Am I correct here, Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are. You have cities where you have cities just dedicated for pedestrians only, especially in cities in Europe, where they tend to favor the environment, and normally the leaders in the environment. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Places, for example, Inspector, can you address this thing? I see sometimes you have motorcyclists and people on bicycles and so on. The traffic signals apply to them too, because oftentimes I see that they are not following those traffic lights. They're just going through, dilly-dallying their way through on bicycles and motorcycles and all of that. So maybe you need to address that.
The traffic lights goes to all vehicles. Yes, the bikes, the motorcycle are the smallest out of all, and so therefore the riders or drivers think it's best to dizzle-dazzle between, but it's for everyone. They have to comply as well.
Right. Working for you, good afternoon. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, we're hearing you. Tell us what's on your mind.
My concern is when you're coming from hello.
Hearing you, go ahead.
When you're coming from West Barcial and Cairn Street, when you're coming down, you can't turn down Spot Street. You can't turn down Market Street now. That is my question. If you could turn down those streets up there.
Could you repeat that, please, caller?
Spot Street and Market Street we can turn down.
When you're coming from west, coming Cairn Street, leaving the Greenlands, coming down.
Could you repeat that, please, Paula?
When you're coming from
We've lost that caller. Inspector, you get the gist of what he's saying? Okay.
Once you're traveling from west to east, and he indicated Spot Street and Mark, yes, you can make that turn because it's further away from the junction. You could make that turn.
Okay. Right, so is there anything that you would like to mention for the public that has not been addressed as yet? Mr. Pemberton.
I would just like to let the public know that even though we have commissioned the lights, that we have a team on the ground who is observing, making notes, and they are seeing how the lights are operating, and Mr. Cross is part of that team. If there needs to be any adjustment, as the case may be, he's on the ground and he will make those adjustments. So it's not a situation where we have just turned them on and, just left them. We are observing. The police are also out there observing, and we are also fielding concerns and our questions from the general public. We will look at them, see what is feasible, what is not feasible, and we move from there. It's a work in progress.
Inspector?
Motorists and pedestrians, and for the general public on a whole, please familiarize yourself or acquaint yourself with the rules of the road as it relates to the signalized junctions, and to exercise extra cautions and comply with all traffic signs and signals / police, traffic wardens. My staff at the traffic department, you can come there, you can call. They are very competent and will be ready and available to assist you with any questions and suggestions that you may have.
I want you, Inspector, to read out the fines and the penalties.
As indicated, for pedestrian, if you cross without before, the fine is $500. So please comply.
Oh, we have a caller. Working for you, good afternoon. We seem to have lost that caller. Mr. Cross?
Just to say that, as Mr. Pemberton has said previously, we are on the ground observing, fine-tuning. As much as the program is what we consider very efficient, you still need to fine-tune. So as I say, we're on the ground doing the fine-tuning. We know it will take a few weeks for motorists to get accustomed. We see a bit of hesitation with some of the motorists on the road, and that's understandable. It's a new series of lights, so just be patient, be calm, as I said, to make the right judgment. And as I say, we are on the ground continuing to fine tune and monitor these lights.
Right. Is there any plan to have traffic lights installed in other places in the country apart from Bastille?
Well, Mr. Williams, we are a developing country, and as a developing country, we are always looking for ways to enhance the traffic management within the country itself. And so the necessary studies will be conducted, and out of those studies, decisions will be made as to where and when additional lights will be implemented.
Okay. And a further question I had, because we get hurricanes and so on every year, how strong are these, the erection of these traffic signals to be able to stand up to hurricanes? Because I often see, like, when you have hurricanes, these things are down, they come down. And how strong are they?
There are specs for a category 4 hurricane. While you might have the heads maybe turning in a particular day, it's not damage, it's just for you to straighten them up. But the poles and other fixtures are expected to withstand a category 4 hurricane. These poles are in 6 feet of concrete steel cage. The arms and poles, as I said, are specs for a category 4 hurricane.
So they're strong.
They're very strong.
Very, very strong.
Very, very strong, yes.
That is important. Well, we are out of time, and I want to thank all three of you. Mr. Livingston Pemberton, the Chief Engineer at the Public Works Department, very, very capable, and who has been here on several occasions to share with the general public what is happening in terms of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, in which the Public Works Department comes under. And Inspector, Head of the Traffic Department, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, Inspector Carleen Phipps. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, because it's very important that people understand the changes, they understand the laws, the traffic laws. They also understand the penalties and fines that will be dished out if they do not obey them. And they also understand importance for them to understand the whole aspect of road safety. The lights are not just placed there for placing their sake, but it's another part of the road safety program in St. Kitts. I know that also around the country they've been building sidewalks and all of that sort of a thing. So that's all a part of the road safety program, which is so important. Cars are important, vehicles are important, but more important are people. And how we use vehicles and so on becomes very, very important for safety on the road. And Mr. Barrington Cross, all the way from Jamaica, helping us here with our traffic lights installation, programming them, and so on. I want to thank you very much for coming on this program today and sharing with us, giving us some of your knowledge and so on in terms of what went into, having the lights as we have them today. So thank you very much. Okay. I want to thank all of our callers to today's program, and those of you who continue to listen from week to week. We continue to appreciate you very much. Next week, we will be back with another edition of Working for You. Until then, I am Les Roy Williams. Take good care.
Yeah, folks, another edition of Working for You Young Man from 9.9. Up next, we got Conscious Business.